2nd, 2025. This is Information Security Now. Oh, dang it. Oh, no. Yeah, dang it. It's fine. Forgot to change the title, but this is Information Security Now. We're going to speak about a few current events in cyber hacking, various other information security aspects. A lot of people know this stuff as kind of the word cyber and it being cyber, but a lot, it's one individual I spoke with really said it's in information security. It's about information, whether that's ransomware, wiperware, any sort of data on the internet. People are just looking to remove it, get rid of it. So, or do something with it, do something malicious with it. And we're just going to go through some stories and some current events. One, through KVAL, Eugene man accused of running largest cyber attack in years, 22 years old. He is the admin of RapperBot. Thousands of devices like digital video recorders and Wi-Fi cyber attacks, flooding the server with traffic, denying legitimate users from accessing the site. Sounds like a DDoS. Sold access to the bot, launching hundreds of thousands of attacks on as many as 18,000 victims in 80 countries. That's crazy. It's interesting to consider how someone begins to do things like that. We'll move on. This is by Dark Reading. The author is Robert Lemos. Insurers may limit payments in cases of unpatched CVEs. CVEs are common vulnerabilities and exposures. Cyber insurers are testing out new ways to hold policyholders accountable, limiting payouts when policyholders fall prey to attacks that use older vulnerabilities. That makes a lot of sense to me because it's getting to a point where so much information is online that it's like running a shop, a physical shop. At some point, it's a little different because a physical shop, usually the security is, I can't imagine it was very complex in the sense of just make sure this person doesn't do anything malicious, steal your goods, vandalize the area, rob people, whatever that may be. It's fairly straightforward. When you get into the realm of information security, the playing field is complex. It's digital, so it's not physical. You literally don't have it in front of you, which is, I would argue, a non-human intuition, whereas physical security is a lot more human and a lot more human interpretable, whereas the domain of cybersecurity is changing daily. Additionally, it's very complex. Additionally, just between those two things, it's easy to penetrate these systems, but so you can imagine as new CVEs, common vulnerabilities and exploits arise, people may fall victim to first days, 0 days, where there hasn't, it's just being discovered in that moment. 0 days. I'm not really sure about the official 0-day vulnerability. Let's define it. Unknown to developers or anyone. So this is stating that insurers may not pay out for old CVEs that were unpatched. And for many companies that possibly don't have high security environments, this isn't something they do regularly, but most high security software should have some sort of implementation within their infrastructure to guard the code and to recognize any vulnerabilities in your code. A company, this is from one individual head of cyber underwriting at Coalition. Quote, a company should be highly skeptical of buying a policy with a CVE exclusion, unquote. Following NotPetya, which we've spoken about before, when companies use business insurance to cover disruptions to operations, efforts to deny payouts largely failed, but led to enhanced wording in subsequent policies. It's a very, I can't imagine, it's a really interesting domain, not very obvious cyber insurance, depending on the type of data and the type of policies you and your software implement. There's likely going to be different pricing. Yet to understand that and to calculate that and to price that is very interesting. Blame the victim. Currently, the software industry is on track to disclose more than 46,000 vulnerabilities in 2025, up from nearly 40,000 in 2024. Operational constraints, legacy systems, and changing threat landscape. To me, it seems like a good exclusion. And if it gives the insurers a ability to guard themselves to be able to give insurance for first 0-day vulnerabilities where there's nothing that you really could have done unless you're active in the cyber space, which few people are. When I say few people, I mean few companies. Most companies that use software are not actively cyber companies. Some are, of course, when you're one of the top 7, Magnificent 7, Google, Amazon, Apple, Tesla, the other ones, NVIDIA. I'm not sure about NVIDIA's security systems. That would be interesting to consider if they are, even if that's a consideration at their layer. And when I say layer, the technological layer, so user to material to alloy. I remember in school we spoke about material science at one point. It was just one class. It was a very difficult class. Most people did not do too well. But it was interesting to consider how the materials, how the alloys, it affects their electrons, protons, neutrons, and how that affects the component, usually a transistor. That's very deep in electrical engineering, but to consider that, I think when we get to quantum, because I did have a podcast with a scientist, KKP 107 or 97, I forget. I believe it was 97 or 98. we spoke about quantum computing and how it gets into atomic structures, which is crazy. It's crazy how it gets into atomic structures. To think that it goes to that level and to understand that's why I believe that is one of the upcoming. I haven't heard. I have heard. Let me just before Jensen Wang on quantum computing. Recently stated, this is from Gemini. Quantum computing is reaching an inflection point and will soon be powerful enough to solve practical problems. Marks a shift from his previous, more cautious outlook on technology's potential. He now envisions a future where quantum computers aided by NVIDIA hardware and software will play a significant role in various fields, including AI and scientific research. That's very interesting. And as far as the manufacturing process through their chips, which many people know, TSMC, and I forget the Dutch company that creates the tooling. ASML. It'll be interesting to think of their role in that, because I can't imagine the manufacturing process is similar. The deployment process can't be similar. I'm wondering, how that deployment process will work. It will be interesting. Okay, so we'll go back. The new math risk. This is a great article. Industry is moving away from companies financially betting on the risk of a breach. Large enterprises with complex risk profiles. It's critical to work with insurers that offer bespoke coverage. This is much bigger deal for huge companies. We saw what happened with CrowdStrike. I'm not sure if that was last year. I forget. And that was a hugely impactful hack. Okay, we'll continue. This is from bankinfosecurity.com. Rural health system in Michigan notifying 140,000 of hack. Stole data for about 2 months. This is really tough for the medical industry. November 2024 to January 2025. Gang Bian Leon listed Aspire Rural Health System as a victim on the dark web. Family of 70 plus providers in Huron County, in various counties in Michigan, learned of an unauthorized party accessed their internal network from November 4th to Jan 6th, 224 to 225. You know, one thing, okay, we'll continue. Aspire determined around July 18th that some files and folders accessed or acquired by the threat contained PII and protected health information, names, DOBs, social security, financial account numbers and routing numbers, medical treatment and diagnosis information. This is huge. Prescriptions, individual health insurance, payment card numbers and access PIN numbers, payment card expiration dates, lab results, and provider information. That is all of the sensitive data. I mean, that's a lot. It's a lot of sensitive. Almost everything that I listed off right there was sensitive information. extremely sensitive information. Also, driver's license numbers, passwords, username, biometric identifiers, patient identification numbers, medical record numbers, and passport numbers. That just got even worse. This is a huge issue within the medical industry, and I know that recently there was a podcast by Acquired on Epic. I need to go through that, and it has a huge role in electronic health records. Crypto has a huge part to play in this. Decentralized systems. I don't know the actual architecture that could play out, but it's similar to what I do with Zayuk and our purpose with Zayuk. Our purpose with Zayuk is so that your information does not go anywhere besides with you. And that's what I think that the electronic health records, whatever they're doing, is completely missing out on. And I understand it to a certain degree because it's when you get that implementation, this architecture of decentralized information is not obvious, and getting people to actually care to hold their data is difficult. But it's gravely important. And I think it will get to a point where our medical industry, for insurance and for its own sake, will have to do the most what's the word I'm looking for? I mean, you'd hope they would have to do the most sustainable, low cost implementation of maintaining medical information, because obviously keeping it with the individual providers is not working. Not to say that changing it radically would fix it. You don't know that. I don't know that. It would be difficult to predict. But there may be more conformity in electronic health records in themselves. There would be less of a risk of a hack because, I mean, you don't know that either. I don't know that either. So, but we can tell that holding this compartmentalized data is not really working out. And I'm curious to know what these companies, specifically the medical industries companies, backend systems look like. Are they on AWS? Do they hold their own servers? Are they on the cloud? Microsoft, whatever, Azure. And this is becoming a huge deal, unfortunately. And again, what's difficult here is that this is going to become a bigger deal as we get into a world of cryptocurrency, stable coins, cybersecurity. Once we get that, put our currency that closely attached to digital currency, hacking and cybersecurity and information security becomes that much more important. It's already very important, and it's one of the huge mechanisms that people get sometimes their life destroyed. You've seen these hacks where vulnerable people get targeted, seniors, various groups. It's difficult. It's difficult. It's a very serious issue. We'll continue. Rural organizations rely on legacy systems and infrastructure, which can be harder to secure and less compatible with modern security tools. Absence of 24/7 monitoring through a security operations center. Rural providers often depend heavily on third-party vendors for electronic health records, billing, and these types of issues. And this was by Marianne Kolbasuk McGee. Okay, we'll continue. This is pretty interesting. Mastermind of $29 million hacking ring extradited from Thailand, and this is in the Korea Times. Chinese national accused of leading a hacking organization that stole more than 38 billion won, which is $29 million from Koreans, including BTS member Jungkook. Extradited after international investigation. Formed a hacking ring overseas between August 2023 and January 2024. Infiltrated the websites of domestic telecom companies. Opened mobile phone accounts. Gained access to financial and crypto accounts, siphoning off assets worth more than 38 billion won. People who tell you cryptocurrency is not secure. We can just say that. You do not want your wealth relying on a password. You do not want the ability for your wealth to be transferred out of your possession with a simple password. It's not secure. That's why the government exists. It's literally one of the big reasons the government exists. Not that specific aspect that you don't want someone, the password aspect, but what is true is looting bandits. Western Europe, as far as what I've read from or heard from podcasts, history podcasts, is that Western Europe sprouted about as a result mainly of Viking conquests through the area, and it was needing to defend from looting bandits that required government to form. It became in the interest of Western Europeans to form a government to defend themselves. That is, I'm not saying that's 100% accurate. I'm not a historian. That's my interpretation based off of what I've heard. And when we think about these things, this is the reason government exists, so that there is a common regulation, whatever that may be, bureaucracy, some sort of governing body that defends us from looting bandits. And this is why Bitcoin in itself is difficult. I can't really see it, especially in the way with the password, simple transfer out. You can just get someone's password, transact on it. They have to architect their security across ledger. It's a very, very risky form of holding wealth. And I don't mean that just in the debate of whether it goes up or down in value. I mean, there's a reason we have a banking system. There's a reason you have FDIC insurance. There's a reason the government exists. and it has its own fiat. There's a reason it has its own fiat. Fiat isn't just something that we just have it there. Well, there's a reason, and it's mostly to defend and make sure the society works effectively. And I'm going to stop. Next, we'll go to the next event, DaVita. Toll of DaVita ransomware hack reaches 2.7 million. This is by Media SC. U.S. dialysis service provider DaVita had data from 2.7 million individuals compromised following Interlock ransomware attack in April. Exfiltration of sensitive personal data. Operations were only temporarily disrupted with critical care delivery uninterrupted. Lost $13.5 million during the second quarter, including $12.5 million in admin costs for ransomware remediation and recovery efforts, as well as $1 million increase in patient care costs. Okay. This is another article, Security Week. Says the same thing. Informed the HHS that a recent data breach impacts nearly 2.7 million. And this Security Week article goes through multiple things. One is 1,200 arrested across Africa in cybercrime crackdown. Interpol, Operation Serengeti 2.0, recovered nearly $100 million and dismantled 11,000 malicious networks. Fraud, crypto mining, inheritance scams. Agentic AI introduces security risks in browsers. Browsers powered by AI, meant to make it easier for users to perform tasks, has detailed scamlexity, a technique that attackers can use to trick AI-powered browsers into handing over user information on phishing websites, facilitating click fix attacks. And I believe scamlexity is a play on Perplexity, which is creating its own browser, and I believe actually made an offer to purchase Chrome. And they create this whole article about it. Very interesting. And we'll go on to another one. Microsoft limits access of Chinese firms to MAP, part of its active protections program, following an investigation into whether the recent tool shell exploit was leaked via MAP. So there's more articles about that here. And this will be the last article I do for tonight. Change follows a wave of attacking on Microsoft SharePoint servers in July. The program in question is called MAP, which gave selective security firms a head start by sharing details of software flaws before they were made public. Yet, Microsoft saw a problem when some Chinese members appeared linked to sudden surge in attacks. Several firms will no longer receive proof of concept code, which is a sample that shows how a real exploit could work. Very interesting. Microsoft told partners about SharePoint issues on June 24, July 3, and July 7. The last date is also when the first attacks were seen in the wild. And they spread to more than 400 groups, including US government agencies. Very, very critical thing. Very critical thing. And I think that technique will likely be scrutinized more as we get into a more closed off, less globalized system around the world, which it seems we're headed towards. This is not the first time MAP has been flagged. In 2012, one company was removed after leaking code. Gave rise to global spying campaign by a group called Hafnium. Interesting. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. This has been good. Hopefully, everyone has a good Friday evening ahead. Take care. Enjoy yourself. Enjoy your day. Have a great day. Thank you so much.